I'm very happy to say I'm with Tom from Groove Armada, albeit, over Zoom, because that's what we've got to do at the moment, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Are you getting used to this? Have you done quite a few of these kind of virtual interviews?
I mean, interestingly, we're in some ways it's not that different because I mean, we've got fans in the UK, but we've got fans in Mexico, Australia, the States. So I'm quite used to sort of doing the promo run in this way. So this is actually in some ways a bit more personal because normally I do it on the phone. So at least I can see the people I'm talking to. But yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm getting used to it.
What we have seen is that people are just coming together and making the most of what they've got. And sometimes I think they've made a lot of friends in the process, which is amazing.
Yeah, totally. I've been talking to my mum and dad more than I normally do, which is great. And because they're they're pretty vulnerable. They're stuck where they are, so that's nice. And just reaching out to people more. I mean, it's hard to sort of it's good to try to draw a few of these positives, and there are some and there are people connecting more, and I think maybe even to some extent reframing little problems they've had in their lives. Suddenly you think, Christ, well, none of this compared to living in a pandemic. That we have largely come together, I think, quite admirably as a community, and I've felt that quite strongly in London where I live in Stokey. The vibe has been really strong, the clap for carers stuff, all that stuff has been brought people together. I'm speaking to my neighbours, which I don't normally do.
Wow.
We shout at my neighbours. So yeah.
I think you're the perfect person to ask about this because the essence of house music essentially is a shared experience, isn't it? But are you finding it difficult because of that? Because obviously you're used to playing in festivals and playing in clubs. Is it good for you to almost kind of widen the goalposts a little bit and try something different?
Yeah, it is. I mean, actually, I enjoyed doing this mix. It's the first time I've just been had to put a mix together under some element of pressure, and that was fun. And it's amazing how quickly, if you just got the music turned up in a studio, the adrenaline starts to go again. You can get quite excited. Your bar's so low now that a bit of loud music. And I was dancing in the studio. So, and we've been writing a bit, so I've been lucky that I've been doing some remix work for, we're doing a band called Confidence Man. We're doing at the moment something for Perry Farrell. And so we've been quite busy and we've got an album coming out. So that's been good. Still tweaking that, messing around with that. And so it's been okay. I've sort of been realistic about it and saying that this is probably going to be like a sabbatical, from DJing and performing for a year potentially. But I do feel really optimistic that all the shows that we lost this summer with the band, they've all been booked again. And I feel really optimistic that we can be partying in fields again by next summer for sure, hopefully spring,
Well, I'm definitely going to be asking you about the album. You just touched on that there because the first taster of that is Get Out on the Dance Floor, which is just one of the most upbeat and amazing songs, and also videos, because we should talk about the video because it was filmed in lockdown and it features a lot of your admirers. So you've got Rose McGowan, got Davina De Campo, of course, from RuPaul's Drag Race UK. Sophie Ellis Becks, who of course has been performing in a living room. These are all people that are fans of yours. Did you know these people before? Because I know that you've worked alongside or worked with Sophie at one point.
I didn't. We've worked with. I'm sort of very aware of Sing the Pink, and I've worked with Horse Meat Disco and a few people in the past. So we've been aware of that. The kind of gay dance music culture to some extent. And we crossed paths. But I didn't know these specific people were fans. So we basically just sent out a mass load of tweets to various people that we noticed were fans, and some people got back to us, and some, thankfully, and I'm not going to mention names, I've got into trouble with this one already, didn't get to us. My daughter is so impressed about the kind of people in this thing. And so, I'm really happy with it. The Rose McGowan one was a real surprise to me. But apparently she genuinely is a fan. I saw her say, what did she say? Just some quote to the LA Times, we're an everything band. I don't even know what that means, but I liked it.
Yeah, that's what I've always noticed with you as a band as well. As a Groove Armada, I've always embraced eclectic artists. You've worked with people that some people might say you wouldn't expect Groove Armada to work with. I mean, you've worked with Will Young, and obviously with the new album, you've got some amazing artists on this album as well coming up.
Yeah, I mean, we've been really lucky in the past, to sort of people that are, Richie Havens, who's an idol of mine, and Nena Cherry, Candy Staton, Brian Ferry. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous the people we've been able to work with and feel really blessed. Will Young was, History is a real favourite of mine. So actually a lot of the collaborators on this album are quite similar to the album we did previously. So there's a guy called Nick Littlemore who sings Get Out on the Dance Floor. He's half of Empire of the Sun and also in a band called Panau. So he's a long-time collaborator. There's a guy called Todd Edwards, who's going to be featuring on the next track, who's done loads of vocals for Daft Punk. He's a big garage DJ, but I didn't know. He's also an amazing singer. So yeah, it's one of the real sort of joys of what we do is the breadth of people that we can work with, and that's something. I'm not much of a melody writer. I'm not much of a lyricist, so it's really fun to write a piece of music and then sort of imagine who would be the perfect person, and then just see if you can get away with it. So Mucha's another one that we never thought we'd work with Mucha Buena and Stush, and it's the list goes on.
I think fans of Chicago House as well are going to be quite excited by the fact that you're featuring Paris Brightledge on. Oh,
good,
on this
good.
album.
Thanks. You mentioned, really happy with that. I mean, we've done 3 songs with him now. So we did a track called Searching, which is a sort of this album track. There's a really lovely, blissed out, almost sort of kind of yacht rocky, I hate to say it, but a kind of real lovely soul record we've done called I Can Only Miss You. And there's a much more dancey track called Dance Our Hurt Away, which I think feels more in that lane. It's classic, black falsetto, solo, Chicago house. Boom.
Have you learned anything from the artists that you work with so far? Because, like I say, they're quite eclectic, these artists, and they bring something different to each track. I think that you've worked on.
Oh yeah, loads. Yeah, I mean, they're all. I've learned a lot about being adaptive and being able to work with different people in different ways. I really remember when we were going to do a cover of "You Got the Love" at Love Box a few years ago. And sort of Candy turning up, and then this kind of moment where we realised that we pitched the tune and it was about 2 semitones lower than the range she was ever able to reach anymore, because people lose all those things. They don't forget that people lose their range, So suddenly all of us tuning our guitars down, and how we work with Mucha is so different, of course, to how you work with someone like Richie Havens, who's a songwriter, and Mucha is too, but she sort of works in a different way, and so a more pop kind of way. So it's about, the main thing I think is about being really open-minded and adaptable to the way that people want to approach a piece of music, and that's how you get the best out of them. Fantastic.
And I should say, I think we've got Andy joining us now.
Oh, fantastic. He can do the rest of the interview now.
Can we talk about where you are? Because you're in London and Andy is in France.
He's in southwest France. Yeah, I mean, Toulouse. Yeah, there he is.
Hello, Andy.
Later than ever.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine, mate. Yeah, sorry about that. We had a storm last night and the internet wires hanging by a thread down here.
Oh, blimey. I'm very excited to have you both chatting to us about the new material. How are you finding it in France, Andy, at the moment, in lockdown?
Well, we're on a farm, so, it's not like we haven't got, we're not sort of doing marathons on a balcony or any of these other measures that some people have had to resort to, but, it's, we make bread down here, so we've sort of been doing the sort of ambulance bread deliveries around the local villages and stuff, and things people are slowly creeping back out into the sunshine now as things get a bit more relaxed. And I had my first draft lager last night, which was an absolute pleasure beyond all things. So we're back in the races. So
we were talking about Get Out on the Dance Floor. We were speaking, Tommy, you were talking about Nick Littlemore, obviously from Empire of the Sun as well. This is obviously someone you trust because you've worked with him quite a few times over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Andy do a bit more of the legwork now, but he's a guy that we started working with a decade ago when we did Black Light, and I can't even remember how the first meeting came about. Do you remember, Andy?
No idea, to be totally honest.
No idea. But yeah, I mean, Andy, you did a bit more work on this tune than me, so you can take it on. Get out on the dance floor, I mean.
A lot of editing work, presumably.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of editing work because, as Thomas might have mentioned, but one of the starting points for doing the new album was the cutting room floor from the Black Light sessions, where we went a bit Colonel Kurtz and we went quite mad towards the end, and a lot of things were sort of started and not finished. And so Nick had done all these jams on different tunes, and he'd done his thing where he just goes into the booth and does a sort of stream of consciousness ramblings on whatever's mad thoughts are going through his mind. And so I found all these phrases like all over the place, sort of repeated and shouted high and low in all the different voices, and just sort of got the scissors out, started slowly extracting some kind of reason out of the chaos, and then we ended up with this vocal pretty much as it is now, of all these bits and pieces put together. And then once it was assembled, it thought like it was just clear that the groove had to be sort of a bit of an LCD Talking Headsy groove to set that vocal off.
Is it normally that way round that you record a track or you write a track? Because I would imagine that it's usually the music you lay down first. Obviously, it was the other way around this time.
It is normally it's always the music. This is quite unusual. That said, what happens quite often is that we'll do a tune, we'll send it off to someone, they'll do a vocal, and then we'll use the bits that we like and then rewrite the music to make the best of the bits that we like. So there's different ways to skin the cat. But this one was quite unusual, having like a fully kind of finished vocal and nothing underneath it. But it's quite fun to jam it that way around. And
I think it sounds really powerful as well, but it sounds fun, and that's quite a difficult balance to get, isn't it? Two together.
Yeah, I think exactly.
I think that's right. Yeah, go on, Tom.
No, I agree. I think what's really important is I love his vocals and I love the lyrics. He's the kind of brilliant, instinctive lyricist. He writes stuff, and there's tracks, particularly on the last album as well, like "Cards to My Heart." When I go back and listen to those lyrics, I'm dumbfounded by their brilliance. So he's got an instinctive genius, but I think it's the chords as well in the middle that give it a lift. It's as well kind of melodically. It's a track I just think live is going to be electric. I can't wait to get it out because it's so live sounding. When we hit those pads, it's going to go off. Yeah,
so exciting. Now your long-awaited new album obviously is looming. It must be so annoying for people to say, "Oh, this is your first studio album for 10 years," almost like you're Kate Bush or something. You haven't recorded anything for a while, but you have been busy. You've been doing other things, haven't you?
Yeah, from 2010, when we stopped the live touring just because we got into kind of that peak EDM world where what we did on festival stages was getting a bit beaten up a bit by the sort of EDM DJs either side of us, and so we just thought, well, let's just do a tour and stop because it's been so good that we don't want any kind of downslope. And so we did that, but then we decided to go underground and just go back to the house music that we love and the DJ that we've always been doing, but that plays sort of slightly second fiddle to the live gigs. And so for the people who are into us who are nightclubbers, we've probably been more present in the last 10 years than ever, because we've been DJing a lot. We've been putting out a lot of EPs on small little dance labels and stuff. And so for us, there's been no kind of interruption. It's just been a refocusing away from big stages to smaller basements, if you like. And but it was when we got the band together for a few weekends last autumn, just for the pure pleasure of getting the crew together again, and then we did that gig, and all of them really, but the one in Manchester in the Warehouse Project where it really properly kicked off, and that's what unleashed the Pandora's box of album 7 or 8 or 10 or 15 or whatever it is that we're on now.
Did you find that in that sense then that the dance music that you were hearing or you were being surrounded with at festivals was becoming a bit predictable?
Well, back in 2010, you mean? Or,
all the EDM type stuff. Obviously, that was pretty big back then.
Yeah, well, it was more that when we play live, it's live dance music with a live band, and so there's it's not just banging and loads of sort of snare fills and white noise and all that stuff, and when you've got that either side of you, everything on 11 all the time. It's quite hard just to be an actual band, and because you just lose on the simple kind of volume visceral thing. You're already on the back foot before you even start, So it was feeling a bit like the gigs had always been really magic, and we had a couple where they weren't, and so we just thought, no, we're not having this. So let's do one last UK tour and then stop. But it feels like we're back out the other side now, and when we walked out on stage at Boomtown last summer, there was a crowd there, super young, that must have been 40,000 people in front of the stage. It's one of the best views from stage I've ever seen in my life. So it feels like we're back on the block again now. Fantastic.
Oh, that's a nice dream as well to have for the future, isn't it? You want to be back in that place again.
Exactly.
I was going to ask you about the artists that you haven't worked with that you'd like to, because you've obviously worked with some really incredible people and very exciting and diverse people like Saint Saviour, who I think has the most beautiful voice. Becky's voice is just incredible. Are there any artists that you've always dreamed of working with, maybe that you've approached and it never happened, or that you'd like to, that you just haven't got the ball rolling for?
Well, It's a difficult one. Andy mentioned when we were talking, so it's out there in the ether anyway. He was saying that it was years ago when Elton John approached us, and we just didn't. Me especially, I have to be honest, just felt overwhelmed by the idea of sort of being in a room trying to tell Elton John or work with Elton John on a new piece of music. So something like that just sort of probably was a missed opportunity, you know. And I don't know. Apart from that, I feel like really, really lucky that there's no one that I feel. I mean, I look at the current scene, and there's loads of artists that I admire. You know, don't get me wrong, but I sort of like the fact that with this record, we've stayed quite close to the singers that we worked with previously, and there's a sense of continuity between those two records, which I really like. You know, so I feel like we talked about it earlier, didn't we? You know, we worked with black folk singers, we worked with Nile Rodgers, we worked with Mucha Buena. We've covered a lot of bases, you know. I'm really happy with that.
Do you ever listen to artists and think, I can hear them on a Groove Armada track? Do you ever think, oh my God, that sounds like the sort of thing that we do? Maybe they're influenced by you.
I listened to a lot. I mean, one I was listening to the other day, and I think it might have led, but listening to some Pevin Everett stuff the other day, I was thinking how amazing he was. But it's a sidestep to Paris Pride, isn't it? You know, but I think that all the time, yeah. But Andy, is anyone you particularly got in mind?
To be honest, you could kind of go on forever on that one. But what I really liked about making this album was just getting back to just simple, just like me and Tom in his basement. A lot of the vocals coming from a bloke who lived around the corner. Just no bullshit. Just back to basics. You know, I really enjoyed that. Whereas, you know, if it would be like, I mean, you know, like, well, he's died recently, of course, but working with guys like Tony Allen or Nena Cherry or all these people that we've done before, it's clearly amazing, but it's a different vibe, you know, to when it's just the two of you just making shit happen in your own way. So I like the new old way of doing things, just keeping it simple like that.
Yeah, and we shouldn't forget also you've been doing this for almost 25 years. How do you keep that working relationship going? Because I read somewhere that you try not to piss each other off with, you know, comments like stupid comments or something, or just something that could rub each other up the wrong way. Are you more cautious of that now as you've been going for 25 years compared to when you started, maybe?
I was reading a thing the other day about interview with Run the Jewels, you know, who have obviously been very kind of prominent of late, and they were talking about they're like best friends, but when you spend 5-6 years on a road with each other, it's impossible to like the little things not to grate. So I think it's really, really hard. It's almost impossible to live in each other's pockets, which we have to do for huge periods of time without it becoming problematical. And that means you sort of know which buttons to press when you want to as well, which is but I think the opposite of that is, there's a sort of enduring love between us, and you know, the distance helps, I think, in some extent now, and us both going off and exploring other areas of our lives now, with Andy with his farming and me training to be a therapist. You know, I would say it's a very sort of loving, supportive relationship most of the time.
I was going to ask you about the album title. Is it an album title yet? And do you know when you can release it? Because obviously lockdown is proving fairly difficult for artists to release music when they wanted to.
Yeah, I think it's September. I'm not sure exactly when. And the album's called Edge of the Horizon. So that's about as much as I know.
Excellent. And finally, obviously with it being lockdown, we've seen people letting off steam in your current video for Get Out on the Dance Floor. How are you letting off steam in lockdown? Drinking beer, Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah, or drinking beer, and I think if you give yourself 200 or 300 acres, 100 cows, and quite a lot of flour to mill, it generally means that the steam is successfully let off by the time it gets to beer o'clock in the evening.
I love it. Keep on doing it. Guys, thank you so much for chatting to me. I'm very much looking forward to the album and obviously seeing you when we can all get out, finally.
Brilliant. All right, thanks so much, and thanks for the support. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Good luck with it.
Cheers. Okay,
Cheers.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.